Thank you very much, fellow Africans, and welcome to our today's episode of the Change for African campaign. So, fellow Africans, this is our 92nd episode of the Change for African campaign, whereby we'll be focusing on our second pillar of the Change for African campaign, all about the potential that we have as an African continent. So, fellow Africans, to help us exemplify our today's episode of the Change for African campaign will be the SDG.Target 8.9. SDG.Target 8.9 is all about promoting sustainable tourism for jobs and local culture by 2030. You realize that 8.9, the target 8.9 comes from the goal decent work and economic growth. So this is being used today to relate to our second pillar of the Change for African campaign, all about the potential that we have as an African continent. Remember, Africa is a land of great potential, and so we have things that that indeed define the potential of Africa. So when you look at these things, we say yes, of course we have the potential, but then there's something not happening that something not happening that is making the potential not to be unleashed. So we need to focus on these areas, speak about those areas. Then after speaking about these areas, now the practical part of it comes after we are done with our daily episode of the Change for African campaign, which will be done in about 1.5 weeks from now. And so, fellow Africans, to focus on this matter is that one of the very key things, or the facts in the room, are that we have two sectors here that can actually show the Africa's potential or unleash the Africa's potential. We have the tourism sector that I'm speaking about. We also have the preservation of our heritage and culture, and we also have the economic part of it, because speaking about potential of Africa, it comes with areas that can be able to result or can be able to make Africa a greater continent in terms of the economic powerhouse, because you realize that Africa's economy is actually lagging, or if it's growing at a very lower pace. It's growing because people may say that Africa's economy is growing, yes, but then there's something I'm getting that you can have a goat that a goat eats and becomes fat, but then it will meant to be a goat, not a cow. So a cow is a different level from that of a goat. So Africa is in that state whereby people are saying that this goat is eating and yes, it's becoming fat, but then the fact of the matter is that the goat does not change to be a cow. So how do we then turn away from not being a goat, but then now being a cow, realistically being a cow? So for us to be able to go into that area, first we need to realize our potential, that we have the potential. So once we have this, we realize that we have this potential as Africa, then we start to see how can we then move away, how can we then build ourselves with that tag that we have the potential. So let us focus on particular areas that can be able to indeed unleash the Africa's potential, because those areas are here, we have them, and they are alive and well, that are areas that can be focused into. That is why tourism is one of the areas, and also the preservation of our heritage and culture, because remember, culture is also another field, another area that has been left behind, especially in Africa. Africans have turned to embrace other cultures instead of focusing or even embracing their culture. These are things that can be able to continue to make us grow in terms of our culture. That is now to be showing the potential out of us, that we are able to do things on our own, we are able to focus on our own things. It's not just about the economic part of it. And also now looking at what tourism gives, or currently what tourism is able to put into the Africa's economy annually. We are talking about 160 billion US dollars into the Africa's economy in the entire African continent, and that is I think it's not enough. We are capable of being much than that. So one of the things we need to do, number one, that is the main reason as well of the Change for African campaign, a movement aimed at civilizing the African youth, that once we realize that we are getting this currently, but then we are able to turn away from having this and even have something greater than what we are having currently, if we put in place pragmatic and strategic moves that can be able to make us ascend to those places that are supposed to be. Because the current situation, how Africa is depicted currently, is not the real Africa. The real Africa will be unleashed once its potential is unleashed. The real Africa will be unleashed once our potential is unleashed, and we have the potential. And who is going to unleash the Africa's potential? The African youth, or the young Africans, are responsible for the Africa's potential, because these are the people going into the future. And for us to be able to have a good Africa, an Africa where a progressive Africa, we need coherent, young Africans who can be able to speak, because there is that prospect, of Africa being a greater continent. It is live and well. It is a fact, that Africa can be a great continent. So these are some of the things you're speaking about, because if you're able to even tackle this SDG target, remember this is a global thing. The SDG target, this is a global thing. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, this is a global thing. But then remember, we are Africans and Africa is our business, so we speak about Africa, we focus on Africa. So, and remember, in Africa, some of the problems we're also going through is the problem of unemployment. But then, what are we doing to make sure that the problem of unemployment is not in Africa? Because we have the potential of being able to absorb many of the unemployed people. The Africa's different corners and fields have that potential. But then the requisite structures have not been put in place to be able to absorb such people. So some of the things you're speaking about is that let us be able to tackle or to tap into this sector of tourism and all about culture and heritage, so that these sectors can be able also to create employment. That is how the Africa's potential is that is how we going to unleash the Africa's potential. Because speaking about Africa's potential is all about that the full definition of Africa is unleashed, and then now the African people live the way it's supposed to be, because currently majority of the Africa's population is living in a very these are dilapidated conditions, it's conditions of destitute that are not worth, they're nugatory for the Africa's people to be living. So once we have that potential unleashed, Africa's population will not be living in the current situations we're living to. So fellow Africans, allow me to get another point. Let's meet tomorrow as we discuss about our 93rd episode of the Change for African campaign, all about the Africa's resources. Thank you. Have a great time. Thank you.